we finally got past that as a society where that's not acceptable anymore.
Yep.
Um, and it's I think it's in a way it's kind of the same thing. It's time to take accountability and responsibility for what we do, and just stop doing something that's not good for our world. You know,
Yeah.
I've always been the type guy. If I'm fishing, even if I'm just fun fishing, I'm catching and releasing. If I catch one down in the gill, if I catch one down in his throat, and I injure that fish, and I release that fish, and I see him come back to the surface, and I see he's not going to make it, I'll go pick that fish back up, and we'll have fish for supper. I'm I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not going to let that fish go to waste. I feel like, I personally, my belief is that's a sin. So, and I try not to do,
Yeah.
I just don't like doing that.
Yeah. No, I totally understand where you're coming from there too. And there's actually a big movement now. I shouldn't say big, but it's growing for more bass anglers specifically to practice keeping certain fish, especially a certain size fish, especially if you
Yep.
want to grow the size of your fishery in
Yep.
regards to the size class of fish. So there's that happening. There's a movement of encouraging people to stop boxing their fish for simply a picture.
Yep.
Or if you're going to box your fish, it's most likely a tournament, and that's or you're going to keep them. One of the two.
Yep.
So I love seeing that happen. And I think that last discussion is we need to talk about. I think weigh-in tournaments are great. Don't get me wrong. I think having weigh-ins are great for fans. I think it gets people involved more of the live event itself, which I think gets more people excited about, specifically
Yep.
bass fishing. So I think those are imperative, but I think we can still have room to make those better.
Yeah.
And that can come with either the slot, that can come with fish lung here. I think there's a lot of improvements. We talked originally a few weeks back of I loved seeing what Icon was doing and strives
Yes.
to for fish care on their boats. And I
Yep.
think this here with fish lung is a next step. And I've seen you guys have signed some anglers like Rob G, as well
Mhm.
as some others that can help you guys lead this conversation and show the way for other tournament anglers, aspiring tournament anglers, that without the fish, there is no tournament fishing. So let's
That's
take
right.
care of the fish while we
That's
do
right.
so, which
Yeah.
is you guys.
And Icon boats, yeah, I agree, man. They have uh, they've done a lot, and I applaud that. I really do. I like their think outside the box uh, method on what they're doing. Um, I would love to see a fish long and an icon, because I think it would be a fantastic combination. Slick Johnson has an icon, I think, and I think
Mhm.
we're working with him to put one in his new one. So that'll be really interesting. And Mark, I'll let him talk on this, but um, he's always had a great point that even MLF guys, when you catch a fish, when you hook that fish doesn't know that you intend to release it. That fish is fighting for its life, literally.
Mhm.
Uh, and to be able to put that fish in a tank of water that's at 200% oxygen saturation and let it recover before you release it, then that fish's chance of survival is probably going to be greater as well. Even if you temporarily hold that fish for 5 minutes and then release it, um, then you're giving it that uh, similar to what an athlete on the sideline, a football player on the sideline, that just returned a kickoff for a touchdown. The first thing they do is they stick that oxygen mask on their face and suck in some oxygen, because their body will recover with a higher purity of oxygen than it would with that 20.9%. So um, that fish will recover quicker as well in a higher oxygenated environment, and then release it. That Mark is always, I've agreed with him on that. I'll let him talk a little bit about it.
The catching fish stresses them. I mean, it really does stress them out, and they need that opportunity to recover. And oxygen, like we said, is just the key to recovery for those guys. I mean, they've got everything else they need. They've got the water. And they different fish take different levels of oxygen out of the water, but we put in a purity level that helps that fish and recover, and it saturates the water. It's not just blowing bubbles. It's actually putting a super saturating the water to the point that fish can absorb it and use it, and so that's a big deal. And when I fish at night and stuff like that, um, I don't know, the jury's out on catch weigh release. I know everybody thinks that's better, but I don't know that it is.
We we've had a couple of customers. Slick was one of them, and we've got another customer that they took fish that were in bad shape and put them in their live well with the fish lung running, and then let them sit in there for 10 minutes or so, and then pulled those fish out, and then re-released them, and those fish were able to swim off after that, as opposed to beginning to turn up on their side. So that does lead you to believe that fish's chance of survival after getting that hit of oxygen, it does increase. We would love to do a lagoon study on that. Lagoon study takes, I'm pretty sure it takes state approval, and of course it takes money. So we would love to set up and work with local or state level officials to be able to coordinate something like that and find out and we may have to do it through a university. I'm not sure. But we would love to be able to do something like that and see what the survival rate is in fish, especially in the warmer temperatures that have been in a fish lung live well versus a regular live well. Same boat type of deal. Say Ranger, so that you get a apples to apples comparison. I think that would be a very interesting test.
That sounds intriguing. So for people tuning in, what is a lagoon study?
Lagoon study would be a very controlled environment to where the parameters are set, and you could say, for example, you would be able to control that fish. I'm pretty sure they would have like a catch pen for them that they could put in and then monitor that fish over time, or possibly even tag that fish and see what happens over the next.
Texas A&M's done it.
Yeah.
They found that a fish over 5 pounds, and don't quote me on these numbers because it's been a while since I've read it, but a fish over 5 pounds, a very high percentage of those fish over 5 pounds caught in 80+ degree water will die within 3 days. And that was from a lagoon study they did. So and I'm not sure if the lagoon was a pond on their campus, or if it was, they worked with the wildlife people and did a slough or something and boxed them or what. I'm not sure how they did it, but they just called it a lagoon study. And a lot of those fish a lot of those larger caliber fish in that hot water do die within 3 days. That's
It does seem to be the process of being caught and boxed does seem to be more detrimental to a larger fish than it does a smaller fish. But we correlate a lot of stuff to temperature too. There's a lot of, I think, misunderstandings about it. I'm originally from Mississippi, and I fished a lot of shallow water. And I have been fishing when it's 90+ degrees and the water temperature is 94, 95 degrees. And if I find lily pads, I'm in 2 or 3 foot of water and I'm gonna fish them because I'm gonna catch fish there. And it is incredibly hot, and you still catch fish. And so those fish are there. They're there because they're getting oxygen around that lily pad, and there's shade there. So a lot of people think that temperature has everything to do with it. It does and it doesn't. It's oxygen, It's what will hold oxygen. And if there's something there, even if it's hot water, that's putting oxygen in that water, those fish they'll stay there because that's where the bait's going to be.
Yeah, fish are cold blooded. They don't care what the water temp is. If it's
That's right.
If it's got a high concentration of oxygen, that's why you catch fish shallow early in the mornings around here, is because the photosynthesis and stuff creates turbulence or whatever in the water, and you've got higher oxygen content. That's where they are, and then they drift out deep or whatever in the heat of the day because that's over.
They don't look for they don't look for temperature. They look for oxygen levels as they go deeper.
So in the spring, when temperatures are rising in the water, it's because the temperature is from a certain, like in the shallower water, it's hotter, but the hotter water is creating more vegetation, which increases more oxygen. Am I getting that correct? And that's what they're looking for, not the temperature?
Yeah, because you got to look at the chain of life. What's occurring where that oxygen's at? That's going to bring in, your smaller fish, and then your bait fish and such, and then your bass and your larger fish are going to follow in. But your insects are going to be in there. Everything where that oxygen is at is where the life is going to be.
That's freaking awesome. That's a dang nugget right there, because everyone's just like, oh, those fish want some warmer water. That's what they're going to be looking for.
They go to where that oxygen's at.